We'll get started in 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. You know, I've traveled across
Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina. Let's listen in.
Over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to continue traveling there this week. The devastation that I've witnessed is hard to describe. Homes and businesses flooded and destroyed, roads and bridges completely washed away. I've assured families and local officials on the ground that we will pursue all available assistance for the area's long-term recovery. And for the past 11 days, we've continued a massive, around-the-clock response to this unprecedented devastation brought to western North Carolina by Hurricane Helene. Thanks to the historic, highly coordinated effort among state, local, and federal partners and our volunteers, we've made significant progress. Power outages are now down under 81,000 from 1 million. Almost 700 drinking water systems in the disaster counties are back to normal, with more coming online each day. AT&T and Verizon have reported 80% of outages have been repaired. There are 17 shelters open for people who need them. 18 of the 29 school districts and counties affected by this disaster are back open, and we're in touch with local officials to support the reopening of the remaining 11 school districts. FEMA has approved about 126,000 people for individual assistance, with more than $60 million already paid to these people. FEMA is also paying for temporary stays for 2,500 people in hotels. And together we're working on more temporary housing. To apply for FEMA assistance, go online to disasterassistance.gov, or you can download the FEMA app or call 800-621-3362. There is a lot more being done, but it's clear that we're still at the beginning of this recovery, and much more work remains ahead for western North Carolina to recover stronger than ever, and it will. I'm so grateful for the work of so many people to help our neighbors and begin to rebuild our communities. I want to extend my deepest condolences to those who've lost loved ones. I've seen firsthand the pain in the eyes of so many of you, but I've also seen determination at the same time. I've heard firsthand about amazing acts of courage and compassion, a firefighter pulling a woman out of a kitchen window as her house flooded, a rescue worker taking chemotherapy drugs on an ATV to a hard-to-reach home. Hurricane Helene was a powerful reminder of nature's might, but it also revealed the unbreakable spirit of our people. To all those who continue to work tirelessly, thank you. Your bravery and dedication show what being a community means. Today, response and recovery operations continue in full force in Western North Carolina. We've had a constant search and rescue work and food and supply delivery in rugged terrain by local emergency responders, FEMA, the North Carolina National Guard, active duty military personnel from Fort Liberty and Fort Campbell, state emergency management, the Highway Patrol, and local law enforcement, the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Environmental Quality, and other agencies, along with all of our volunteers, to ensure that aid reaches people as swiftly as possible. This is a true all-hands-on-deck moment. With this enormous effort underway, it's important to point out the onslaught of lies and misinformation that are impacting the people there on the ground. This misinformation is confusing to people trying to get help. It's demoralizing and dangerous for people working so hard to deliver that help. I strongly urge people to verify with respected news sources the information and the videos that have been sent to you. Ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask for assistance from FEMA or from state responders. On the other hand, many people are looking for ways to help. I appreciate the efforts of the legislature today to pass a bill to aid these communities. We've also activated the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund, managed by the United Way of North Carolina. Donations to this fund go directly to organizations providing relief on the ground. For more information and to make a donation, visit nc.gov/donate. I'm heartened by the progress that's being made, but we know the road to a full recovery is long, and we must be committed to work together until Western North Carolina is fully restored. Today, I'm joined by Emergency Management Director Will Ray, FEMA Administrator Dan Criswell, Major General Todd Hunt, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, Secretary of Health and Human Services Cody Kinsley, Secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality Mary Penny Kelly, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation Joey Hopkins, the Secretary of the Department of Public Safety Eddie Buffalo. Our American Sign Language interpreters are Nicole Fox and Brian Tipton, and behind the scenes our Spanish language interpreters are Jackie Mativier and Erica Kugler. We'll first hear from Emergency Management. Will?
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. The response and recovery operations across Western North Carolina continue in full force. This is a historic disaster, the magnitude of which we have never experienced before in our state. The road to recovery will be long, but North Carolinians are strong and resilient, and together we will recover from this disaster. The State Emergency Response Team, assisted by states from across the country, the federal government, the private sector, community-based organizations, nonprofits, and volunteers have come together to execute the largest whole-of-community response in North Carolina history. These dedicated organizations are continuing to work around the clock to respond to the needs of our mountain communities. Goods and services are steadily flowing into impacted communities. Over 1,600 responders from 35 states remain in the impacted area to support the response and recovery efforts. These resources include search teams, public health nurses, emergency managers, logistics specialists, and more. Their combined efforts have resulted in the successful rescue of hundreds of North Carolinians. The North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal continues to coordinate North Carolina firefighters and apparatus to assist local responders in the hardest hit areas and are working closely with impacted fire and rescue departments to ensure that their responsibility is sustained. As of today, there are 380 North Carolina firefighters with over 65 fire trucks on deployment in Western North Carolina. The North Carolina Search and Rescue Program, North Carolina National Guard, and partners from federal teams and other states have assisted thousands of people who needed rescue, evacuation, and other assistance. 15 county emergency operations centers remain activated, with 25 county states of emergency and 52 municipal states of emergency in place. As the governor said, there are 17 shelters open, with 715 residents being served along with 122 pets. The Mass Feeding Task Force has 3 sites operational, continuing in Buncombe, McDowell, and Watauga counties, and continue to assist other feeding operations in concert with our local partners, including 45 mobile sites across 13 counties. There have been over 360,000 meals provided to impacted communities as of today. FEMA currently has over 900 personnel on the ground, setting up assistance centers and distributing information to impacted communities for financial support. These individuals can be identified by their FEMA logo apparel and federal government identification. There are disaster survivor assistance teams in Western North Carolina neighborhoods across 22 locations and 10 counties as of this morning. To date, there have been over 134,000 North Carolinians that have applied for FEMA individual assistance, with over $60 million approved for disbursement directly to those survivors. I want to thank FEMA for their commitment to ensuring that disaster survivors get expedient access to financial assistance for immediate needs. Additional programs are being stood up in rapid order to provide further assistance to impacted North Carolinians, to include transitional housing assistance and the direct housing program. Disaster recovery centers are being opened in the impacted communities for those needing assistance to receive information and to help facilitate applications. We will see disaster recovery centers open in Buncombe, McDowell, Caldwell, and Jackson counties this week. There will be additional sites announced as plans are being finalized in close coordination with our local partners. The North Carolina National Guard has deployed 3,500 total personnel, along with a force of 33 rotary wing aircraft and 1,300 vehicles. The mission continues to be rescue, route clearance, commodity distribution, and resupply to critical functions. There are roadways that remain closed largely due to the impacts from flooding. Railroad operators continue their damage assessments, and repairs have begun in many areas, with restoration of rail access coming back online in the next 2 weeks. There are 53 wastewater treatment plants in the affected area that are now operating under normal processes. 28 wastewater treatment facilities are partially operational, with some operating on backup power. I would especially like to say thank you to NC Waterworn, a collaborative of water treatment and public utilities specialists from across the state that have deployed to assist with bringing these critical infrastructure facilities back online quickly. There are areas in the mountains that are still experiencing cellular and data outages. Our telecommunications partners are reporting that they have successfully restored 80%, as the governor said, of these outages, and work continues around the clock. If you're in Western North Carolina and your cellular device isn't reconnecting to a network, as a reminder, please turn off your phone, turn it back on again to allow your phone to find a network if one is available in your area. The state's 911 centers are stabilizing, and those that need emergency assistance should continue to call 911. Please beware of temporary fiber lines while conducting cleanup operations. Finally, I want to personally thank the thousands of people that have converged on Western North Carolina to assist in this massive effort. We talk about the whole of community approach, and over the last 2 weeks, we have seen it put into action to support those in Western North Carolina. There are countless stories of the heroic efforts of communities and neighbors helping each other. Public sector, private sector, nonprofits and volunteer agencies, your dedication to help our fellow North Carolinians will never be forgotten. To those in Western North Carolina, we are here and we remain with you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Director Ray. We'll now hear from FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell to share her an update.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon, everybody. First, I would just like to express my appreciation for the amazing partnership that I've had with the Governor as we have been able to go out, talk to the people, as you heard, hear what their needs are, and ensure that we are moving our federal resources into the places that they are needed most. We will continue to support the governor's priorities, as you heard from Director Ray, search and rescue operations, helping to get access to isolated communities, moving the resources from the pods to the people, and helping to restore the critical infrastructure. We have brought in thousands of federal personnel to support all of these different missions, and I want to assure the people of North Carolina that while we watch Hurricane Milton approach the coast of Florida, you can be assured that no resources are going to be taken from North Carolina. Those that are here on the ground are here to support the efforts that are still needed for the response and the initial recovery, and we will continue to bring in whatever is needed to support these ongoing recovery efforts. Now, I'm going to be traveling to Florida later this afternoon, so I can be there to integrate with the state of Florida and help with their initial response. But my regional administrator, Robert Saman, has been here on the ground with the governor, with Director Ray since the beginning, and he will remain while I am in Florida to help with this critical response. I will return to North Carolina to make sure that all of our federal assets, the entire federal family, is moving to the places that are needed, and if we need additional resources, we will continue to bring those in. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Administrator Criswell. We'll now hear from Major General Todd Hunt, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard.
Thank you, Governor. And before I begin, I want to again thank the soldiers and airmen of the North Carolina National Guard and our active duty for their Herculean efforts as they provide relief to the citizens of Western North Carolina. I also like to emphasize that the North Carolina National Guard has been there before the storm. They were in Asheville the night of the storm and surrounding areas, and so we have always been there. Like was previously mentioned, the North Carolina National Guard and active duty combined have over 3,500 personnel in the area, almost a little over 1,200 vehicles that are working this area diligently. And as of today, we have delivered almost, or actually a little over, 5,000 tons of commodities. We've flown almost 800 flight hours, which is normally twice what a unit would do. And that's been done with North Carolina National Guard and active duty aviation. We've been providing search and rescue along the way with resupply commodities, and as of today, we are providing needed medicines to the citizens of Western North Carolina. We have soldiers that are currently working their engineering units, and they're working with DOT to clear roads along the way and secondary roads, and we've also cleared over 1,000 obstacles as of today. We've integrated with the Highway Patrol to ensure roads remain open and not clogged so that commodities and emergency vehicles can make it to where they need to go, and making sure that all of our commodities are met. I would also like to thank the North Carolina Air National Guard as they continue to do resupply coordination and commodities with their C-17. On the first day, we delivered almost 100,000 pounds of water into the community. The National Guard and the active duty components that we have with us have touched every county in Western North Carolina. And we have liaison officers with Starlink and communication tools that can help with our emergency management partners as well. Again, we continue to provide search, rescue, relocation, commodity distribution, warehouse operations, support to engineering and DOT to clear some debris, and help with small, rapid road repairs. And of one note, the North Carolina National Guard, like all National Guard units, is a hometown-based force. It's the very foundation of our organization. I'd like to give a short example of how that works. So we have Captain Pate. Captain Pate is a traditional guardsman who drills, once a month and during the summer, but he's also a UPS driver in Avery County. So right now, Captain Pate is our liaison officer with emergency management in Avery County, using his civilian skill set because he knows the road networks and who's there in the county to help provide additional commodities from the commodity post or the commodity station to individual homes as necessary. So that is how the National Guard is working in our communities, and our active duty brothers and sisters are doing the same thing. So in closing, I want to thank the soldiers, airmen, and the active duty and their families, many of who within the region have lost all they have and their homes, but have still answered the call to serve and for the citizens of Western North Carolina to make a positive impact on their return to normal life. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, General Hunt. Now I'd like to ask Transportation Secretary Joey Hopkins to share an update.
Thank you, Governor. While we still have many roads closed and damaged, we're thankful for our crews and contractors who have reopened more than 460 roads. We're reporting just over 600 road closures in our system. 98 of those are primary roads, and this number is still changing daily as communications improve and we reach more sites. We've identified more than 5,800 damaged sites. This includes more than 500 bridges and 600 culverts, and we do expect at least 100 bridges will require full replacement. That number could rise as we learn more from ongoing assessments. We have awarded a contract to Wright Brothers Construction to stabilize the westbound lanes of I-40 there in the Pigeon River Gorge. The contract does include incentives to be complete by early 2025. We're also coordinating with Tennessee DOT since they have damage on their side, as well as collaborating with our partners at FHWA on the long-term plan for reconstruction of I-40 here. We plan to have that contract underway before the stabilization operation concludes. On the personnel front, we have more than 2,100 DOT employees responding to recovery efforts. This includes 1,700 working directly in Western North Carolina, and we have more than 1,100 pieces of heavy equipment, dump trucks, backhoes, loaders, and graders in the affected area. In addition to this, we have hundreds of contract employees, DOT crews from both Florida and Kentucky, the North Carolina National Guard, and the U.S. Army Forces assisting in our efforts. There are still areas in 10 counties that have limited access to the state highway system. This access may be by ATV or footbridge or even by National Guard vehicles, and we're working to provide improved access to these areas as fast as possible. Our crews and assistants continue to make steady progress. We have more than 2,300 debris sites on our state highways, and our cut and shove operations are complete or nearly complete in every county. Some locations are now transitioning to reconstruction, but progress does vary by county because of the amount of damage. We are now in the process of rotating our staff to provide relief for those initial response teams. Also, we're increasing crew transfers and adding support equipment as needed. I want to reiterate that non-essential traffic is hindering our efforts to get roads open back up. Crews are having to stop work to allow traffic to pass through damaged areas. To help us get roads cleared and open as fast as possible, we again ask that traffic use alternative routes. They stay outside of the impacted areas to get through Western North Carolina. We do have some truckers using roads that were not designed or even constructed to handle truck traffic. And because of this, we have had to close some roads or even restrict access on some routes in Western North Carolina to prevent trucks from getting stuck in tight turns. To emphasize this, we've done a number of alerts through social media, through our website, drivenc.com, through cell phone alerts, and other ways to get this word out. On the DMV side, we have 6 driver's license offices in Western North Carolina that are still closed, and 2 license plate agency offices that are closed. Some of our driver's license offices are not able to do road tests at this time, and I recommend that you call or check before you go if you need those services. We're very thankful for the coordination of our many partners during the recovery of this devastation that Helene has left behind, and I'm grateful for the support we've received from the State Highway Patrol, from Emergency Management, from the North Carolina National Guard, U.S. Army Forces, and even other state DOTs, contractors, utilities, and even our communication partners. Also, we've had numerous private companies and even countless volunteers step up to clear highways and even repair roads in some communities. And I want to say thank you to everyone that's done that. Really appreciate that, and we are here for the long haul too. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Hopkins. Also want to recognize we also have the commander of the North Carolina Highway Patrol here with us. We'll now hear from the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Cody Kinsley.
Thank you, Governor. Our entire team at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services is committed to supporting every corner of Western North Carolina in the wake of this disaster, now and for the long haul. First, all hospitals are operating and accepting patients. Common to a disaster response, we are transferring some patients among facilities to relieve pressure on any one facility. We have deployed 3 disaster medical assistance teams to Lenoir, Asheville, and Spruce Pine to support emergency departments and inpatient units. Additionally, we have established 2 field hospitals, one in Mills River and Hickory. Second, we are proactively reaching out to vulnerable individuals. We're in ongoing contact with all nursing homes, and 95% or more of the assisted living facilities and facilities serving individuals with disabilities in the region. When we can't reach facilities by phone, we are dispatching ground and air assets. We have accounted for and ensured the safety of every child in foster care in the region. We are also working with insurance companies and local partners to proactively reach out to and support vulnerable individuals living at home. Third, we are supporting access to health services in communities. There are currently 234 pharmacies open in the region, at least 1 in each county. All opioid treatment programs are open, and individuals can be served at any of these facilities. Lists of these locations are available on our website, ncdhhs.gov. We've opened a community healthcare site in Burnsville, equipped with essential medications, medical supplies, and ambulances for immediate support. Fourth, in addition to the food distribution available at mass feeding sites, we have provided SNAP benefit flexibilities. Individuals can now use SNAP benefits to purchase hot food at EBT vendors statewide. We also automatically replenished $24 million of SNAP benefits for 200,000 individuals in the region. More than 80% of EBT vendors are operational. We've sent over 10,000 cases of baby formula into the region. Remember, access to safe water remains a top concern. Please be aware that any water for drinking, well or otherwise, that have been impacted by floodwaters is potentially not safe to use. Please visit our website or your local health department for water safety resources and additional information. Tragically, at this time, we have had 88 confirmed storm-related fatalities. We have 6 fatality recovery teams in the region and a central processing site. We will work quickly and methodically through this process, supporting and informing families along the way. Last, I want to remind everyone that any disaster, but especially one of this scale, is traumatic. There is no right or wrong way to feel. We have deployed mental health counselors to shelters and want everyone to know that they can call the Disaster Distress Helpline at 1-800-985-5990 for confidential counseling and support. Much is underway, and there will be much more to do. We all remain committed to the health and well-being of everyone in the region, mind and body, for the long haul.
Thank you, Secretary Kinsley. We'll now hear from our Department of Environmental Quality Secretary, Mary Penny Kelly.
Thank you, Governor. During and after Helene, the Department of Environmental Quality moved quickly to keep our environment clean and safe, especially safe drinking water. We continue to monitor dangerous conditions along reservoir dams, assess the extensive damage to water treatment systems, mobilize repairs, and provide alternative drinking water treatment. Our primary mission right now is to get public water systems back online so that they can provide safe, reliable drinking water for everyone in Western North Carolina. There are more than 700 public water systems in the disaster area. The storm devastated many communities, including washing away water lines that provided clean drinking water to homes. As of today, 29 systems that are closed are not producing water. 8 systems are without power. On the good news side, thanks to the hard work of many people, we have seen a lot of systems come back online. More than 1 million residents can access clean drinking water in their homes. Those numbers continue to improve as power is restored and emergency repairs are being made. Our staff are talking directly to local officials and system operators to understand what they need and provide technical assistance. We're coordinating additional lab capacities so that as systems get back online, they can sample and lift their boil water advisories and get safe drinking water to residents as quickly as possible. We are also looking ahead at how we can assist water and wastewater systems with any gaps in their funding needs. For updates on water system status, visit our website Storm Dashboard or the mobile app unit that was built and launched last week. On the sanitation side, there are more than 200 water systems total. 20 treatment plants are closed due to significant damage, and 28 systems have no power. The good news, right now, 18 of the 25 major wastewater facilities and a number of small systems remain operational. We are working with our partners here at the Emergency Operations Center, including EPA, FEMA, and the Army Corps of Engineers, to identify and visit sites that are unaccounted for. Whether that's a water plant, a wastewater plant, or an industrial facility, we will perform assessments of those that are offline to address impacts caused by the storm. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort. We are also working to approve and coordinate disaster debris sites and landfill capacity so cleanup efforts can move quickly and responsibly. I want to thank the DEQ staff who have been working in the field and with our partners here at the Emergency Operations Center since the activation nearly 2 weeks ago in working on monitoring dams, assessing the infrastructure during the storm, and supporting the response since. We know there is a tremendous amount of work to do. DEQ will be here to assist and support our communities for as long as it takes as they recover and rebuild. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Kelly. We also have our Secretary of Department of Adult Correction, Todd Ishii, with us. We'll now take questions from media in the room. If you would approach the mic over there to the right if you have a question.
Right, so what you've been listening to really is the update from any and every department that's there with the state, kind of giving a big picture view of what's happening in Western North Carolina. Definitely some highlights there with the number of power outages going down, the number of water treatment plants that are coming back on, but still a really long way to go. Something else that I thought was really interesting as well was they talked about how they've already hired a construction crew to fix I-40. That's west of Asheville all the way to Tennessee, and that they've given them incentives to be done by early 2025. I know a lot of people were wondering when that stretch of I-40 was going to open, but when you look at the number of roads that are still closed, they talked about how there are 600 roads that are still closed, 98 of them are primary roads, and that they assessed 5,800 damage sites, and that 100 bridges are estimated to need full replacement. So these are just some of the highlights there. Of course, we're going to have all of this. We're going to put it up for you on WFMY Plus so that you can watch all of this again and see this information for yourself.
But not overall volume. So our Turnpike Authority has worked with mobility partners to cap that maximum rate. The way the algorithms are written for the managed lanes, the rate goes up when the volume goes up. And so we've worked with them to cap those rates at pre-storm max and also to waive the 45-mile-an-hour minimum requirement on managed lanes. And so they have implemented that. I don't have the numbers as far as revenue, but happy to help you work with mobility partners to get that at some point in the future.
My second DOT question, if you don't mind, is as it relates, my understanding is that there were trucks staged in Hickory and elsewhere from the National Guard to respond to the disaster area in the western part of the state that had to sit there over the weekend because DOT implemented a permit requirement for all these trucks after an incident. And it took until Monday to start issuing those permits. So wondering if you can shed some light on why there was a delay and whether or not those trucks have now been deployed and you got that permit issue resolved.
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics of that, but I will respond to the requirement of a permit for these. Anytime you're moving an oversized or overweight vehicle, we do have permit requirements for safety reasons, and we have a dedicated staff that just deal with permits all across the state, whether you're an overweight vehicle or oversized. So we don't want to put a heavier piece of equipment on a bridge that can't handle that weight, or a taller piece of equipment under a bridge is not tall enough. So we did have some backlog over the weekend, and it was taking as much as 16 hours to issue permits. Now it's taking less than an hour anytime we get a permit request in from those offices.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Maggie Newland, CBS 17. One of the main concerns we've heard from especially these smaller communities is the lack of communication both immediately after the storm and continuing. Did any of these counties have satellite phones already in place? And if so, or if not, what will be done in the future to ensure that communication isn't a problem going forward?
The lack of communication because of the almost complete destruction of the infrastructure for cell phones was a huge problem for the get-go. People couldn't communicate with each other. Local officials couldn't communicate with each other. So I think it shows us that as we rebuild these communication systems, that we make sure that we're doing it in a smarter and more resilient way, because pretty much everything was down and out. And there's still some pockets there that do not have cell phone service as we're trying to get it back. I will turn it to Will Ray to see who might have had satellite phones there from the beginning. Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for that question. So many of our public safety partners, many of the agencies that you see here, both at a state level and local level, I think we have a number of redundant communications platforms in play. Obviously, that does not get to the wider communication challenges in the community, but from a public safety standpoint, we did have some redundant capacity there to be able to facilitate some of that life safety need during the event. Some of our systems, particularly the one maintained by the State Highway Patrol, did maintain operation from a radio network. So while we did see some degradation on other sides of the communication space, there were others that did withstand some of the force of this event. As the governor said, I think as we review this, we're going to take a hard look at what additional capacity or capability may need to be deployed into areas of the state. Certainly, the terrain and just geography of this region offers some unique challenges. And I think as we look at, as the governor said, rebuilding not just the infrastructure, but the deployment of additional redundant platforms, all of that is certainly going to be taken into account.
I have a quick for the National Guard. Can I? We've seen, everybody's seen the video of the Black Hawk helicopter and the blowing away the donations. I understand that is under investigation. Can you talk at all about that? And can you explain what kind of communication is in place between the National Guard and, say, local law enforcement or other local officials in terms of coordinating donation drops or whatever landing may have to happen?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for asking that question, honestly, because that was a North Carolina National Guard helicopter. It's under our command, and I'll take responsibility for it, and we own it. What the situation was they were bringing in a generator to that landing site. As they approached, they noticed that there were too many people and too many tents and commodities too close to the landing site, so they pulled in power to take back off like a go-around in a helicopter. And the rotor wash caused that damage. The crew has been grounded. We are under investigation. Safety is our number one paramount with our forces that we have on the ground. And so we are, again, continuing to investigate that. We do have some communication with the landing sites and the people that we are going to take commodities to. It's matured over time. Initially, we had no communication, so we were just making a call and landing. But now the landing sites have been more mature, and we do have communication with emergency personnel that are on the ground. And we are very sorry that happened, and again, the investigation is underway. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
WTVD. Is there anyone still in Western North Carolina who is unaccounted for? And if so, what efforts are being made to contact them, and if any challenges do exist?
This is something that is happening every single minute of every day to make sure that we find everybody in North Carolina. There were a lot of lists that were accumulated in 211, the American Red Cross, other reports. I'm going to recognize Will Ray to talk about how all of that is being coordinated, but we won't rest until everybody is accounted for. Many of the counties have reported that people are all accounted for, but we're still waiting for some results from some counties as all of these issues are merged. But Will, I'll call on you.
Thanks for that question. I think, as the governor said, the reason our first operational priority remains search and rescue is for that reason. I think all the agencies you see here, the agencies that are operating in the EOC and down forward deployed in the field, we are still committed to finding all North Carolinians. As the governor said, there are a number of avenues that have been put out publicly where folks can report loved ones or friends or family that are otherwise unaccounted for. One of the things we are doing is making sure that local law enforcement has all of that information that's available, that as I think one of the other briefers said, they are the ones that know the community. They know the neighborhoods, they know the areas, they know the people around them. And so we want to make sure that we've equipped local law enforcement with the best information that we have available. We are also leveraging some capabilities from our state law enforcement partners as well as our federal law enforcement partners to use technology or other solutions to be able to assist in identification of where people may have moved to or where they may be. And so, as the governor said, it's incredibly fluid as there are a lot of groups providing information. Our goal, I think, is to provide that actionable information as locally as possible so that it can be actioned quickly and we can continue to work through that.
And then one question for Administrator Criswell. You said that you were heading to Florida later today to assist with Hurricane Milton. What further message of confidence can you give to the community in Western North Carolina that FEMA will in fact be here for the long haul, seeing as Florida is dealing with its own set of challenges right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The resources that I'm moving into Florida right now, let me just start with, I have over 1,000 people in Florida currently supporting the response to Hurricane Helene as well as previous disasters that they have had, hurricanes over the last few years. We've moved additional search and rescue personnel that did not impact the ability to support what Director Ray is continuing to do. And we've moved in other resources that weren't engaged. And so, again, we are not moving resources that are actively engaged in the priorities that the governor has set here in North Carolina. We are moving resources, especially as they've been released from places like South Carolina, Georgia, or Tennessee, where we had them initially. And as those situations stabilize, we're able to reassign or move those resources into other areas. But we also, again, this is the federal family. We can draw from all of them, from across the federal government, from across the United States, to move into Florida. And so I can guarantee that we have enough staff to support the immediate response needs that are going to be needed for Hurricane Milton, as well as continue the efforts that we are providing here in North Carolina.
Thank you.
Adam?
Real quick follow-up to the first question. How many people are missing right now that you know of?
Well, I'm going to turn that over to you.
So we're certainly happy to follow up with you offline. I don't have the current number in front of me. Again, as I said, I think this is part of one of the challenges is there are, I think, multiple different data sets out there. Again, we're trying to make sure we provide that information as quickly as possible to those local law enforcement agencies, working with our chiefs and our sheriffs to adjudicate that quickly, to be able to give families that are waiting some comfort or some sort of resolution of the matter. And so can certainly follow up with you offline on kind of what estimates look like. But again, right now, I think the big thing is this team here, the team operating in there and forward are committed to continuing that work to support operations in Western North Carolina.
Thanks. And then there's a lot of frustration right now about people thinking they're not seeing government out in Western North Carolina, thinking they're not seeing National Guard or FEMA or whoever. Could you guys maybe walk me through some of the cadence of how you're getting into these more rural communities, maybe how often you're there, what the supply, I know it's going to be different on every instance, but just sort of walk me through what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that over to Will in a minute, but I'll tell you this was an unprecedented disaster over a very wide area in very rugged terrain with very many different places that are very hard to get to. I understand people's frustration and have talked to many people in Western North Carolina myself. I will tell you this, we want to go where anybody needs help. So if someone has reported to you that they haven't gotten help, let us know and we will get there immediately. Because the issue is that the National Guard, FEMA, local responders, state responders are all throughout the community. And I'll turn it over to Will to tell you a little bit about the cadence of what happens.
So thanks for the question. And I think one of the things, the reason we've covered some of the material that we've covered in some of the briefing points is so folks understand the number of personnel from state agencies that are in the area of impact. Right now, there's 33 counties that are in our western region. 27 of them are in the declared area for this event. So the elevation and the geographic span square miles that covers is significant. But we can go down the line here and talk about the hundreds or thousands in some cases of personnel that are operating in that area. And again, we can certainly drill down into those details, into who's where. But I think one thing the governor said is important. I think we are here to support the needs of our local communities, period. And we use liaisons that are embedded with them from a lot of different agencies to determine what that demand signal is and what these community needs are to be able to get whatever the resource is into that region. And so you have liaison officers from many of the agencies you see here and some agencies you don't up here that are in those EOCs, that are in those counties today, trying to make sure that those agencies working tirelessly locally have what they need. So again, happy to follow up with the full scope of specifics of number of agency, number of personnel, and where, but between personnel, between teams from out of state, between the hundreds of thousands of pounds that you've heard about of commodities and equipment moved in, I think, again, we are surging support into Western North Carolina. But I think here's the other thing. I think one of the important things about this event is what is often overlooked. The fact that there are churches and groups in those communities right now doing incredible work, taking care of the needs of the community. Those are groups that we can come alongside and support. These are groups that that local governments can come alongside and support. And so I think, again, it's a term we use of whole of community, but I think this truly is an example of it to respond effectively to an event of this magnitude and scope. It truly is going to take that partnership. It's not a public sector function alone. It's private sector, nonprofits, volunteer agencies, churches, other houses of worship. It takes neighbors helping each other. And I think that, to me, is one of the takeaways from this event. That's what we've tried to reinforce to our team, is what you have seen publicly is communities taking care of each other and meeting the needs. And our job is to support that work.
And then one more for Secretary Kelly. How many industrial sites have you guys not been to yet?
So there are several that we haven't been to yet. We are deploying into the field when the roads are cleared and we're able to get out there. We're starting to make those assessments. We're doing deeper assessments. Our priority has been water and wastewater. So as we're getting requests in from industrial sites, we are responding to those and seeing where their wastewater would normally go. If they need an alternative, we're tasking that out as well. Thanks.
Online? Yes, question from someone calling in.
Brian Anderson with the Anderson Alerts. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I've been under the weather, so I appreciate y'all fielding questions remotely for us. I know everyone standing up there cares deeply about the people impacted by this hurricane, and there's obviously a Herculean effort on the ground right now. But I just heard a great deal of frustration from folks who felt abandoned in the first days of this tragedy and 12 days later are still concerned about people unaccounted for. I know a couple other folks had asked a similar question, so I'm just hoping maybe you can share some light onto it. Could you just share how many people are still unaccounted for, how many North Carolinians are dead, and how many of these deaths were weather-related versus ones due to a lack of food or water or other necessities. And I know someone had said there's an effort to share that information with local law enforcement. So I'm just hoping someone might be able to share that publicly here today as well.
There are 88 people in North Carolina who are confirmed deceased at this time. Secretary Kinsley has made a report. I'm going to let you give that report again, if you can, right now on that issue.
Thanks, Brian. As of right now, there are 88 storm-related fatalities in North Carolina. We have 6 fatality teams that are out systematically going through the region to identify remains and to process them. We will always prioritize identification and quick communication with family members, and we'll continue to update that number every day.
And there are, as we said earlier, there are many lists that have been accumulated of people reporting people that they couldn't get in touch with. The biggest issue we have now is that most of those people have now gotten in touch with people who made the report, yet we had not been able to close the loop on that to be able to make sure that everything is in place. So there is work going on in every single community, and I know Secretary Buffalo has been working with every county. Many counties have reported none unaccounted for. I think that number is going to be very low, but we're hesitant to give you a number right now regarding that because most of that is still in the works. But we are looking every day and making sure we're checking on everybody, door to door, talking to people in communities, trying to make sure that every person in Western North Carolina is accounted for. Any other questions?
The next question, the last question online is from Katie Soloff with Axios News. Katie, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call. I fully understand and appreciate that the focus right now is on search and rescue and restoration of essential services, but I'm also curious about the aid to small businesses throughout Western North Carolina who help sustain the area's economy. Aside from loans and things of the nature, what sort of assistance is going to be provided at the state level for those businesses? Anything in the forms of like grants or any sort of COVID type relief we can expect?
Because this destruction was so massive, we're going to have to be creative about the relief that we give Western North Carolina. And I believe that's going to mean direct assistance to small businesses to help them recover. Many of them right now are wiped out, and it will be a while before they can rebuild and reopen. And many of them aren't going to want to take the chance on a loan, even on really good terms, because they don't know what the future looks like for them. So in order to ensure that we restore Western North Carolina and make sure that we help develop the backbone of our economy, which is small businesses, I think the legislature, and we need to be creative with our federal partners as well, ought to provide some more assistance to small businesses rather than just loans. We also need greater unemployment insurance for the employees of those small businesses who no longer have jobs, because we want to keep them in the area and to keep them available for when Western North Carolina comes back. I've talked to a number of small businesses who are so deeply saddened that they put so much into these businesses and they have employees who depend on them. So I think we're going to have to do that, and I'm ready to work with the legislature, with Congress, with federal agencies to make sure that we rebuild Western North Carolina, and that we do it with small businesses being at the forefront of this effort outside of all of the humanitarian effort that we're doing now. Okay. That's the end of the questions. Thank you very much.